Retroality TV presents Reimagine That with Chris Mann, offering refreshing reality with a retro twist. This week we have part 2 of Chris's interview with a classic Dallas villainess, actress Morgan Brittany, and we'll delve once again into the realm of subconscious reverie with our very own dream weaver, Yvonne Reba. And now, introducing your host, Chris Mann.
Thank you, Linda Kay, our vintage-voiced announcer and producer. And thank you for checking in with us here at Reimagine That, the Retroality.tv podcast where retro pop meets forward thought. This is episode 18, and if you're joining us for the first time, we are all about mining those vintage nuggets from yesteryear, those TV idols and icons from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And sometimes even the 50s and 60s, and flash forward today to discover how they've reimagined and reinvented their own lives as pop culture continues to reimagine, reboot, remake, and revive these series, movies, and songs that made them famous and that they helped make famous and iconic in the first place. It is March 22nd. And I am thrilled to share part 2 of our 2-part interview with the incredible Morgan Brittany. You know her best as the iconic villainess Catherine Wentworth on Dallas in the 1980s. She has reinvented and reimagined her own life many times. She is the epitome of this show, the essence of what we're looking for and what inspires us. She survived Hollywood as a child actor and then went on and reinvented herself, picked out a new name, Morgan Brittany, was cast in Dallas, became a huge sensation in the 80s, and then went on to raise her family and now has once again reinvented herself as a political commentator. Check her out at Politichicks.tv. She also has a column online that you can Google and check out, and also check out morganbrittany.com. She's incredible, and we're excited to hear from her more about her childhood and what propelled her to make a big change for herself as an adolescent, as a young woman. And Hollywood is an unforgiving place. It's a dark place for many people. She talks about how she got through it, how she made it to the other side, literally from Hollywood to New York to reinvent herself, but she also made it to the other side on a deeper emotional, spiritual level and has emerged as a really cool together lady. And she talks more about the possibility we all want to see her return to TNT's revival continuation of Dallas. And now that we have all mourned the loss of J.R. Ewing and the man who embodied him for 35 years, the late Larry Hagman, it's interesting to see Cynthia Sidray, the new executive producer of Dallas, weave the old with the new without JR as the last 4 or 5 episodes of season 2 of TNT's Dallas continue on. And my hope is that she will continue to draw on the fabric of the past, and let's bring Catherine back, the female equivalent in many ways of JR. Let's get her in there to kick Cliff Barnes in the shins, to quote my friend Kurt Phillips. Thank you, Kurt. And to also stir things up with Bobby Ewing and the whole clan, the whole new younger generation. At its heart, of course, Dallas is a family drama. It's a family saga with a lot of other great intrigue and greed and avarice wrapped around it. But at its heart, it's a family drama. And we all have that dysfunctional, crazy person in our family that is a Catherine Wentworth derivative. And it's interesting to hear how Morgan pulled on some 40s and 50s glamour and characterization, some inspiration there to develop this character when she started out kind of as a good girl and then evolved into the evil witch that Catherine became. It's also interesting to see that All My Children and One Life to Live will be coming back at the end of April on the internet in this new age of new media. We'll see how that plays out. If they're wise, they will keep Agnes Nixon aboard. She created both shows. She knows the characters inside out, and she can weave the old with the new. That is a show, especially All My Children, that really needs to know the family dynamics, the multi-generational craziness and dysfunction to attract mature fans and to also attract younger, newer fans. So we'll see how that goes. We certainly hope that TNT's Dallas is back for a third season, and we want to see Catherine. So listen up, TNT. After our second part of our interview with Morgan, stick around for our dream segment with Yvonne Ripa. We go into one of my dreams from 20 years ago, which is pretty freaky, with a lot of pop culture references. We've got Madonna, we've got Hollywood, we've got perhaps a cautionary tale about fame. But first, I want to give a shout out to a couple of friends of mine who are making their own way quite well in this new media age. My friend Pavan Patel, who is the news director at the amazing Sitcoms Online, its blog. He has done a series of 7 questions with famous TV favorites. Most recently, he has done one with actress Amy Davidson of 8 Simple Rules. Check that out at blog.sitcomsonline.com. He has also quite recently done some with Beverly Archer of Mama's Family and Major Dad, and he did a video interview with her as well. And he also did a great 7 questions with Haywood Nelson of What's Happening. So we salute you, Pavan. And also, my friend Suzanne Ferry, check out her blog at suzanneferry.blogspot.com. That's SuzanneFerry.blogspot.com. And she's also contributed a fun guest column to my blog at retroality.tv. She is an expert on old Hollywood. She is writing her 3rd book at this point. She writes in this blog about her new book, her 2nd book, The Day the Stars Stood Still, a memoir about Logan Fleming, top wax artist for Movieland Wax Museum. Check her out, buy her book. Keep old Hollywood alive by supporting us authors. We need the support in this new media age. There's still something to be said for print, for having a wonderful, freshly published book in your hands to enjoy. And you'll have that from me, hopefully later this year, with a new version of my Three's Company book, and hopefully in 2014, my book on John Ritter. And I've got a few other things in the pipeline too that I'll keep you guys posted about. But keep us in mind. If you have any news, drop us an email at retroality@comcast.net. If you have a dream you want us to discuss, if you want to discuss the Dallas dream season, anything retro, dreamy, imagination, let it run wild. And now, stay tuned for the conclusion of Morgan Brittany's eye-opening odyssey. Oh my gosh, 50 plus years of showbiz history. She began as Suzanne Cupito, a child actress who was in The Andy Griffith Show, multiple episodes of The Twilight Zone, Gunsmoke, Sea Hunt, everything from the 50s and 60s, you name it. She also worked with luminaries like Lucille Ball and Henry Fonda and Yours, Mine, and Ours. And she was with Rosalind Russell. She shares some of those stories with us here. And she also talks about her new life. At age 60, she is still kicking butt and taking names. And I think she could be doing that in character on Dallas. That's the last time I'll say it. Listen up, TNT. And let's join Morgan for part 2.
I learned a lot of life lessons, having experienced that at an early age. And thank goodness, I wasn't self-destructive, and I didn't fall into a trap that a lot of child actors do.
And that is so true. Well, you and Opie are among the two few who did so well. Maybe it was the Andy Griffith touch or something that...
It could be. And then also, Kurt Russell did very well. He grew up with us as well.
Right.
And Kurt, of course, he was Disney, you know? So.
Yeah. Barefoot Executive, all of that stuff. Well,
Yep.
I want to talk more about Catherine here in a bit, but as Morgan Brittany, you really hit the national scene playing Vivian Leigh, which you would play her multiple times.
Right.
You found this great name in a romance novel, and I even remember you in a 1982, I think it was, TV movie called The Wild Women of Chastity Gulch,
Yes.
which was one of my favorites. It had you and Priscilla Barnes and Joan Collins. It had like all the big ABC and, for you, CBS stars.
Right.
Did you ever feel that maybe you'd lived before in the Civil War era?
You know, I thought about it. I remember the very first movie that I was ever taken to as a child was Gone with the Wind. And I was very, very young, 5 or 6 years old. And I remember it made such an impression on me when I didn't remember the whole movie, but I remembered her in the red dress. And it's funny because people would say to me, you know, you look like Scarlett O'Hara. You just remind me of her. And when I was in New York, and I thought to myself, you know, maybe I'm going to go with that. Maybe I'm going to run with that because, you know, nobody really, if you think about it, back in the 70s, I had a very difficult time getting acting jobs because of the fact that they wanted kind of grittier looking people, earthier looking people. And we were coming out of the, you know, the Vietnam era and the hippie generation, and actresses like Sissy Spacek were very popular with the no makeup. And here I was, a complete opposite. I was like, wore makeup and my hair was done and it was more glamorous.
Yep.
Yeah, very glamorous. And so I was kind of out of the mainstream for features and television, and that's why I stayed in New York and then went to Japan for a couple of years. But what I did is I kind of cultivated the Vivian Leigh style, and I kind of brought back kind of that 1940s sort of glamour.
Yes.
And then when I got back from Japan, Charlie's Angels had been picked up by ABC, and all of a sudden the door opened for glamorous, you know, beautiful, lots of hair, that whole thing. The timing could not have been better for me. And so...
And you and Morgan Fairchild were right there for the initiation of Sarah.
That's right. That's exactly right. I think she had been in New York at the time prior to that as well, either working on a soap opera or something. I think she was.
Well, there is a time for everything, and I have to go back real quick to Wild Women. Did you get a chance with Joan Collins to sort of compare notes on your characters on Dynasty and Dallas?
Oh, no.
Darn it.
No. You know, Joan is a star, okay? In every sense of the word, she is a star. And, I mean, Priscilla was very hot on television at the time. I was on Dallas at the time, but we all knew who the star was.
Right. It was Miss Collins.
Yes, it was pretty much, if she talked to you, then it was okay.
That's great.
You didn't go out of your way to strike up a conversation.
Well, in some subconscious way, perhaps, that gave you a little inspiration with Catherine. Although I think you started Catherine's hats before Joan started Alexis's hats. There was a...
I did.
Yeah.
I did. And I had to convince Dallas to let me wear a hat because the DP was going, no, it's going to shadow your face and we can't do that. And I said, oh, please, it's a character thing for me, please.
Yeah, it added a level of 40s glamour. I know you've mentioned before sort of the Joan Crawford look. What are some of the other characters that inspired you developing Catherine into a bad girl?
Well, I basically, when they decided that they wanted her to go into the evil direction, I decided that I would make her a cross between the evil queen in Snow White and in the way that she looked, and then the character in All About Eve, Eve Harrington, in All About Eve.
Ann
So
Baxter.
the end. I watched that film over and over, and I took that character and I spun that character into Catherine. So I basically took the look of the evil queen in Snow White. If you notice, my eye makeup was very similar to hers.
Right.
And then I took the deceptive, just dripping with sugar to your face and then stabbing you in the back from Eve Harrington, from Ann Baxter. And I wanted, I didn't want it to be too obvious that I was stealing, but I thought that would make a terrific character, just to be so nice to you. And then, Pam didn't have a clue for the longest time.
Pam didn't have a clue. Like they called you, TV Guide, Dallas Backstabber. So it was all sweetness to your face, and then when you turned around.
That's right. Oh, I remember many times the director of photography when I'd be smiling at Pam and then I'd turn toward him at the camera and he's like, "Oh my gosh!"
Now,
if looks could kill, I'd be dead.
I have to ask: was there anything real life that sort of factored into that?
Oh gosh, there's. Every show has its moments, but
right.
basically overall it was okay.
That's good. Well, I have to tell you briefly, I was a member of the Morgan Brittany fan club.
Oh.
Probably around 1985. I was about 12, 13 years old. And
my gosh.
Sent away, got your blue poster. It came in the mail. I was so excited. I grew up in Oklahoma, so in this country road, I get this Morgan Brittany fan club. And the stupid mailman had bent the tube, and I opened the poster, and there was all these wrinkles down it. And I wrote the Morgan Brittany fan club, and I explained my situation. And in a week or two later, here comes another poster. So thank you.
Oh, oh my gosh.
I was so thrilled. So yeah, I was right there watching all of this great stuff unfold during the Dallas heydays. By all accounts, you fit right in with the fun-loving mischief of Larry and Patrick. You didn't work a lot with Linda Gray, but it seems to me like you two would hit it off and both have a very sort of down-to-earth good time together. Is that your impression of Linda?
Yes. Every opportunity that I had to be with Linda, we would do the Oil Barons Ball, and then we would work together again at the Ewing Barbecue. But most of the time, we didn't have really any interaction, any scenes together. But she was wonderful. She still is. Everyone in the business loves her.
Yeah.
She has the best reputation. Very professional. Very, just a really, you're right, a really down-to-earth, real person. Mm-hmm. And that's why Linda's had such a long career for so many years, because she's very good at what she does. She's a great actress. She looks amazing. And I wish we could have had more scenes together. It would have been great.
Well, TNT, listen up. There's
That's right.
so many good possibilities here. One last quick question about Victoria Principal. If you were to see Victoria today, how do you think that would be? Do you think it would be like, "Hey, give me a hug," or "Hey, Victoria, how are you?" Because she's always been a little bit separate from this core group.
Yeah, I think, because we did work together so much, I think it would be a nice reunion. I do. I think it would be very nice. But Victoria is she's very reserved. Mm-hmm. She's very private. And even if you try to get very close to her, she has her circle of friends of people that she really trusts. Now, I don't know whether that's from her past, that she has kind of a distrust of people in a way, but I do know that she is a very private person.
Yeah.
And if I saw her, I mean, it would be great to see her. I haven't seen her in years, but, you know, I just saw Steve Canale and Charlene, and we were just jumping up and down, hugging each other.
That's cool.
It was like old home week, you know. It was great.
Yeah, we need to have another South Fork barbecue, and I can see all the havoc you could wreak there as Catherine.
I just think I should buy South Fork, don't you?
Well, that would totally take them by surprise, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it, though?
Yeah. You know, when you were brought back to kill Bobby, before we learned later that it was all a dream, you were several months pregnant with your daughter, Katie, right?
That's right, yes. I was.
You named her after your character, or was that just a coincidence, Catherine?
It was a coincidence. I'd always loved the name Catherine. Her name's Catherine Elizabeth, and
yeah,
I always loved it anyway. So it was funny that was my character's name all those years. I was 7 months pregnant when we did the car accident sequence where I was dead. And you know, that whole sequence, back then we had standards and practices, and CBS was very concerned that I died with my eyes open.
Oh, freaky.
Yeah. They were very concerned that it would upset the public too much, that, you know, when they pulled that wig off my head and my eyes were open. But Lenny Katzman fought for it, and he said, no, I really want that. That's going to make such an impact on the cliffhanger, you know?
It did when your head fell back and that blonde wig pushed back a bit, and we saw the famous piercing blue eyes of Morgan Brittany. It was very chilling. Yeah, it really was. And to be, you know, for me to be 7 months pregnant and then I'm in the makeup room with blood and stuff, I'm going, oh, this is not working. Dying's no fun.
No.
Well, you know, that whacked out dream season of Dallas, some would call it a nightmare. How is that like the illusory sort of up and down world of Hollywood where you never really know who or what is quite real?
Yeah, you know, sometimes they push the envelope a little too far. I think they lost a lot of their audience after that because people really trust their shows. You know, they really do. And they trust them to be resolved in the right way. And then when you have a funeral on Knots Landing, and Knots Landing is completely believing that Bobby's dead, right. And then it's like he's not really. I mean, I kept asking Lenny Katzman. I said, "Are you sure this is going to work? Are you sure?" And he said, "Well, this is what they want to do, and they feel that the public will forgive anything." Well, I don't know about that.
I don't know.
You know?
Yeah, there seemed to be a real shift after that point with people going, "Okay, have we been taken for a year?"
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. Speaking of your daughter, Katie Gill, she's now an actress, right?
Yes, she is. She just last week was working on Parks and Recreation. She has a reoccurring role as Christie Brinkley's daughter on the show. So,
wow.
But she did a Lifetime movie called Betrayed at 17, where she played the bad guy. Very interesting. Very interesting.
And your son's a musician.
He is. Yes, he is. He's getting, he's getting started, getting his feet wet and performing and doing everything, but he's very good. He's self-taught and he writes beautiful music, and, we're very, very happy for him.
That's great. And your husband, of course, Jack Gill, is a very famous stuntman. You met on the Dukes of Hazzard, right?
We did, yes, way back then. Yeah, and I'll tell you, Jack has done amazingly well. He does mostly second unit directing now, and his last movie, he just finished Hangover 3.
Wow.
And he's like one of the top stunt guys in the entire industry, and he's fighting very hard, and he has for the past 20 years, to get the stunt community an Academy Award. They don't have a category for stunts.
And that's a shame.
I know, and you would think that would be kind of a no-brainer, wouldn't you?
Right.
That they're such a huge part of Hollywood, and yet they're completely ignored. So he's working hard on that.
Well, it's a total performance skill there, and your skill set and his skill set. Do you have advice especially for your daughter, about sort of avoiding the pitfalls of Hollywood?
Oh, yeah. I have been very honest with both of my kids, and I don't sugarcoat it at all. And I tell them exactly what the drill is. I said, you know what? You just got to be tough, and you got to be strong, and no matter what happens, you just got to, if you really, really want this, and you are absolutely passionate about it, and this is what you want, you cannot give up. And it was the words of Henry Fonda that got me through my toughest times back in the day.
Really?
Henry Fonda had called at age 14, sitting on the set of Yours, Mine, and Ours. We were doing needlepoint together, believe it or not. He taught me how to needlepoint. And I said to him, I said, you know, sometimes I get really discouraged when I lose jobs or I miss out on things. And, you know, I talked about how I had lost out on Sound of Music at the last second, you know, and I said, it's so disappointing when you lose out, and sometimes I just want to quit. I just want to give it up and just not do it anymore. And he looked at me and he said, you know something? He said, if you give up, you're never going to know if around that next corner you could have made it.
That's sage advice.
I know. And to me, I think that that's what carried me through some of the darkest times. I would hear his words in my head going, if you quit, you're never going to know if just around that corner, there it was, you know. And that's the way Hollywood is. That's the way the entertainment business is. It's always the fact that just one more step, you know, that could have been great. Yeah. And if you're passionate about it and you love it enough. And so I try to instill that in both my kids. And I say, this is not an easy road. This is not, you've chosen a profession that's very, very difficult. But I'm here for you, and if you have questions and you have concerns and you don't know which way to go, you come to me. I will give you the best answer I can. But I said, I am behind you 100%.
That's fantastic.
I'm your, you know, I said, I'm your support system. And to tell you the honest truth, I didn't have that.
Yeah, as a child?
Yeah, I didn't. I was basically just the doll that was trotted out to make money and then put away at night. So I don't want my kids to feel that way. I want them to know that no matter what happens, I'm there.
And they have value. It sounds to me like growing up, your sense of value was all tied to your career, your ability to be rehired and, you know, help the family and all of that kind of stuff. So, you know, that must have been a real character-defining upbringing for you.
Yeah, it really was. I'll tell you, I had to learn to make it on my own, be on my own. I knew that if I fell, nobody was going to help me up, you know. It was up to me because nobody was there. And that's a tough situation to be in, but you definitely learn a lot from it.
You do. I have to touch briefly Yours, Mine, and Ours. You've talked about Lucille Ball in the past. Was she a challenge for you personally? I mean, I know she's often been known as being a perfectionist and maybe a little, I don't know, impersonal or cold. I mean, was that a challenge?
By that time, I'd been around adults my whole life. So I was used to that. Rosalind Russell was kind of like that. She was very professional and no nonsense, and she knew everything. And, you know, God forbid, you don't screw up around these people. You just don't. Because they don't. Yeah, I mean, you just don't. You better know every line. You better hit every mark. You better never screw up one of their scenes because there was just no tolerance for it. It was a number one professional. And so, you know, Lucy was just one of the tougher actors. That's all. She was amazing to work with. I learned a lot because I learned that, wow, you really got to look out for yourself because nobody else is going to. So she knew her lighting, she knew her makeup, she knew her direction, she knew her wardrobe. She knew everybody's job. And if a line didn't sound right to her, she'd rewrite it.
She was on her game.
I mean, and you know what? It helped me because it made me speak up later, like I did on Dallas when I said, you know, please let me wear the hat. It's a character thing. I never would have said that. You know, I would have just gone on and not done anything. But having learned from people through the years and
Yeah.
working with them, I picked up things like that.
Well, you definitely had the benefit of your child career, and reinventing yourself as Morgan Brittany is so cool. In recent years, you've sort of reinvented yourself again as a conservative commentator, and you've put your journalism background to use as a writer, a columnist, and you're co-host of a web series called Politichicks, right?
That's very true. That's right.
When you decided to become a vocal conservative, did you realize this may, be at odds for your acting career in liberal Hollywood?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I did. I knew that because I had, I had heard it all through the years, and, the conversations that went on in the makeup room and the trailers and the transportation vans in the morning,
Oh,
if
yeah.
you had a differing opinion, you didn't express it because you knew that it was, you just didn't do it,
Right.
and that's the way everybody kind of stayed very quiet. And, I just decided, after a while, I guess it was after 9/11, that, boy, I really have to, in my heart, I really have to speak out for what I believe. And you know what? If the walls come crumbling down, then so be it. But there's something sometimes that's, you feel it's maybe bigger than yourself, maybe bigger than a career. And to me, my country is the greatest country in the world. I've been all over the world, and I would not want to live anywhere else. And the freedom and the opportunity that I had to come from absolutely nothing and
Yes.
to make something in my life that I wanted to make. This is the thing. You can mold yourself into whatever you want to be in this country.
That's right.
And, if I start seeing things that are going wrong, or I feel, people wake up, this is happening, sometimes I feel like I should speak out about it.
Compelled.
Yes, yes.
And my thing is, Hollywood should be inclusive of all points of view. The characters that we see on screen draw from all points of life, all walks of life. It would be a boring place if everybody was like either a hardcore liberal or a hardcore conservative. There's so many places in between. And so, kudos to you for getting out there and speaking your mind. And I hope that it hasn't hurt your chances in Hollywood, because I totally can still see you juggling both.
Well, and the thing is, I have a lot of liberal friends and a lot of people that we have great conversations together, and we love each other. And maybe we disagree on a few of the issues and things, but we still love each other as human beings and people. And sometimes I can't understand the closed-mindedness of Hollywood when they just don't want to be around you if you think differently from them.
It's ironic.
I have heard, I heard that from David Mamet, that when he came out pretty much as a conservative, they just shut him down.
Oh, wow.
And he's brilliant, he's a brilliant writer. And he's just completely amazed that the doors would shut like that on him. And I said, well, there's still a lot of great people that maybe, they will still include you. I said, I always have to look at that. And like my best girlfriend in New York City, she's a very hardcore liberal, but we love each other, would do anything for each other. And, that's just the way it should be.
It should. I was a little disturbed to read the story about Ed Asner sort of turning his back on you after being so embracing of you when you worked together. Yeah. Has that been a little bit of an extreme example? Have you encountered that to that degree elsewhere?
Well, not really, because I'm not in the Hollywood crowd anymore.
Yeah.
I don't really deal with that community that much. So no, I really don't have that. I hear it from a lot of my Hollywood friends that are still on TV series and still working, or they're writing or doing things, and I hear how bad it is for them, and I really feel for them. And they have to keep quiet, and they have to keep underground, and it's kind of a shame, but I'm in a whole different place, and whatever I say, that's fine. And you know what? If they don't like it, then they just don't like it. They don't have to hire me, but that's fine.
Well, dialogue is the core of any good story in Hollywood, and dialogue should be embraced. on the political realm too. What's next for you, Morgan? Are you based in California, or are you based in Texas?
No, I actually have a home in California. My husband does a lot of films in Georgia, so we split our time between Atlanta and LA.
Oh, okay.
We spend half our time, both places, and it's great. I travel enormous amounts. I do a lot of fundraising. I go back for Mayberry Days and meet the fans there.
Oh, wow.
I do speeches, and now I'm starting to, I'm writing a couple of columns a week, and I'm doing a lot of shows, a lot of news programs and things. So
yeah.
I'm going places all the time and doing stuff all the time. So, I'm pretty much based here, but I could be anywhere.
You could even be in, Dallas if necessary.
That's very true. That's very true. And, it's really wonderful. They've asked me to run for office. I've been asked by the party to run for Congress, but I don't really want to. I've been around it for so long, and I know the games in Washington, and I know the dysfunction and the corrupt process.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to. I really don't want to be a part of that. I would rather be an outsider looking in and, speaking my mind and maybe writing columns about things and getting people motivated and doing speeches and talking about values and family and things like that, rather than sitting in Washington and becoming, I don't know. I just look at that situation, and it's so dysfunctional.
Yeah,
more
than Hollywood.
Yeah, and they're just, and you know what? They're just not looking out for us. They're looking out for themselves.
Yeah.
And it's very, I just can't get myself into that.
Well, you are using your voice and your youthful look on Politichicks. I think that you are connecting with people. And one more question I had for you, maybe two. Dallas, of course, was in the era of excess in the 80s. And now there's a lot of backstabbing and this and that. Does the message of Dallas, has that ever conflicted sort of with your moral compass of traditional values and doing the right thing? Was that ever a conflict for you?
It did. There were times on the show when I would ask the writers, like I'd read the direction that Catherine was going, like when she broke up Pam's marriage, and it looked like she was really moving in on Bobby. And I said, and I remember asking the writers, I said, I hope you guys aren't going to make her a hero. I hope you guys aren't going to let her win. And they said, oh, no, she's going to suffer. And I went, well, that's good. Because I said, I don't want to see people looking at Catherine going, wow, I really want to be her.
Right.
And they said, no, we will make sure that she suffers for what she does. Mm-hmm. And they said, basically J.R. Ewing did as well.
Sure.
So the bad people on the show, you had a big distinction between good and evil on that show, between Bobby and J.R.
Yes.
And there was people could see it. And so you'd watch it in entertainment, in the entertainment value of saying, oh, I love this because he's so mean, but I know he's going to get it, or something bad's going to happen, or that's why people loved it so much.
That's why.
And good triumphed, would always come out. So it was great.
It did have that message, and sadly now JR did get it, apparently.
Yeah.
Any, parting thoughts about Larry and the ongoing Dallas legacy that many people hope you will go back into that fold if TNT is in their right mind?
Well, I'll say one thing. Larry, he passed away doing exactly what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
He wanted to be working, and you know what? He wanted to be playing the character that was iconic and that he was most remembered for. And I think that was perfect for him. Everybody, of course, was just so sad and so upset when he passed away, but he did what he needed to do, and he was there. And a lot of people were saying, oh my gosh, he was so frail, and he was bringing himself to set, and he was doing the scenes and everything, but we could see where it was going. But that's what he wanted. And he's another one of those guys that he was so passionate about it, and he loved it so much that was exactly what he wanted. So I hope that the new show, I hope it continues being true to what the original intent was. I hope that they continue down the lines and make it interesting and make it, kind of controversial, where people hang on to everything and go, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next week? Because you remember, people couldn't wait for Friday night to see what was going to happen.
Could not wait. No. And they've been wise to bring in the legacy characters to keep that multi-generational family dysfunction and craziness present. And I just can't see a better person to now put in the mix than Catherine. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed, and I'm glad to hear you're open to the possibility.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And we'll see what happens.
We'll see. And hopefully down the road, I'll be talking to you about what's it like to be back at South Fork.
Okay. Absolutely. You'll get the first interview.
Oh, thank you so much, Morgan. It has been a joy. And from an original Morgan Brittany fan club member, I say thank you.
Oh, thanks, Chris. I appreciate it.
Morgan Brittany is a classic Hollywood survivor. Not only did she survive being a child star, she survived being a full-fledged adult actress in Hollywood too, and she even survived Dallas's dreadful dream season. And that, in a weird way, brings us to our next segment with our own dreamweaver, Yvonne Reba. Check out her website at yvonneryba.com. This week, we go back into the vault of my personal experiences from about 20 years ago, a dream I had when I was in college at the University of Tulsa, and getting ready to embark on a big life change of moving to Hollywood myself, in part to pursue showbiz aspirations as a writer, first and foremost to write the Three's Company book. And I had this freaky dream with Madonna in it, who about 20 years ago, in her own way, was sort of a villainess. Not terribly unlike Catherine Wentworth, she certainly was controversial. In this dream, she definitely represented a sense of doom or danger. Would I survive Hollywood? Sit back like Pam Ewing, take a little nap, and join us in our dream journey in our new Reawakenings segment with Yvonne Reba. And hi, Yvonne. Thanks for joining us again.
Hello, Chris.
It's great to have you here. You know, we spoke recently. I let you know about a dream that I had about 20 years ago when I was a student at the University of Tulsa, getting ready to embark on a new life and a major change, going from the life I had known for 23 years in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to moving to Hollywood to pursue my dreams, in part in show business. So with that said, why don't I go ahead and tell the listeners my dream, and then you can give us your thoughts on it.
Absolutely. Great idea.
Wonderful. So again, this was about 20 years ago, around 1993. I was outside the student union at the University of Tulsa, my alma mater, and all of a sudden a stretch limo pulled up. And of course I was intrigued. The window rolled down in the back to reveal none other than Madonna sitting in the car. And she was all made up with the hair. And when I got close enough to see her, she reached out and injected me with a needle. And then the black window went up and she drove off. It was very dramatic. Well, immediately I felt like, oh my God, I've been poisoned. I immediately felt like I was going to die. So I ran upstairs, probably in my dream in slow motion, you know, because it's always a labor.
Oh, yes, I know.
To get up to the newspaper office to use the phone to call 911. And I ran in and I asked my faculty advisor, Beverly, to dial 911. I indicated, you know, my arm, and she wasn't responding fast enough. So I said, "Instant death, Beverly. Instant death." And I remember those words. And so finally I got her attention, and we were looking for the phone, which was always sort of hard to find in the newsroom. And we discover that it's sitting on top of a refrigerator, which wasn't naturally in that space, but I think my brain was trying to figure out something to make it an even bigger obstacle. So we climbed up and got the phone and pulled it down while I'm dying from, instant death. And pick up the phone, and it's a rotary phone.
Yes. Oh, gosh.
And I'm trying to dial it, and every time I try to dial the 9, I screw up, and it cancels the call. And I'm like, Beverly, dial this phone. And finally, while I'm waiting for 911 to be dialed, I died, or I almost died, and I woke up out of the dream because it was too horrible. I knew I was going to die. So pretty funny and definitely dramatic, but give me your take on this dream.
Okay. Well, now then, this is obviously one of those panic dreams.
Yes.
Panic dreams where you wake up. Now, when you woke up, what were you like? Oh my gosh, I'm really dying, or you felt pretty bad?
It was a definite feeling of, if not doom, then it was not
I know.
Positive.
Right, anxiety. Talk about it. Okay, here's what I get.
Yeah.
My ideas here. First of all, the general meaning behind this dream is one of a big message from your higher self. And in the dream, there are several things that refer to that. They're kind of hidden, like Beverly. Beverly is the faculty advisor.
Yes.
Well, there you go. She was an advisor. In your dream, she's supposed to help you. Okay, she's an advisor.
Yes.
So your higher self is in here. When you ran up the stairs, even if you actually had to run upstairs to this office, did you have to do that?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Nothing was easy.
No, well, you picked a symbol. Running upstairs is raising yourself to the next level. And to get help, you've got to go up. You've got to get to the next level, which is where our spiritual advisors are. Okay, that's what prayer's about.
Yes.
So in your dream, it was, wake up, Chris, and know that going to Hollywood can be instant death, in quotes, okay? And I just can't help it. I've got to tell you that when you said instant death, I thought of instant potatoes. And I know it sounds very ridiculous, but instant potatoes are not instant. I mean, it still takes a while for them to work. So here, you didn't have instant death. You were still running around, even though you had it. I'm sorry, that sounds funny.
That's funny.
Yeah, it is funny, but anyway, you knew that you had to be careful.
Yes.
You were being offered something here. Here the stretch limo pulls up. Well, let's go back to the beginning and go through this quickly. One, you're in college, which is where you were, but you were about to graduate, if you like, to the next level. All right, you were going to leave and go out into the world. You were moving from Tulsa, Oklahoma, to Hollywood, California.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Huge contrast.
Yeah.
And along comes a stretch limo. Okay, now stretch limos are the epitome of luxury. And when the window goes down, there's Madonna all made up in the back seat, and she's the epitome of fame. All right. In fact, 20 years ago, she was, I think, if not the most photographed woman, she definitely was one of two. Princess Diana was the other the world.
That's
all
right.
And a woman who reinvented herself every year or so. She came up with a different way of being.
Big fame of reinvention with her.
Yes, absolutely. So she rolls down the window, and there she is. Now, stretch limos, you do not drive them yourself. You get in, somebody else drives. The thing about vehicles is that they represent our bodies or our method of going through life. So the vehicle is representing your body or the way that you're living. Like, I think I may have mentioned once, a friend said they'd had a horrible dream. They were in a car, the brakes had gone out, they couldn't control it, and they ended up in the ditch. And I said, well, that's your message there is, watch out, you are out of control.
Yes.
You need to pull back, otherwise you're going to end up in the ditch. And unfortunately, that person did end up in the ditch, as it were, in quotes, in their lives. They had to really make a huge turnaround to get back even where they were before.
Wow.
But they just run amok, as it were, with money and various other things. So the vehicle here is a stretch limo. Stretch limos are driven by the driver, okay, and they represent you being driven by something, okay, and that's a pun, a wordplay here. You are not in control of the vehicle, that's number one. Somebody else is, or some other part of you is. It could be ambition because, let's face it, we associate stretch limos with fame and fortune and
Oh, yeah.
And Madonna, of course, as we said, is the epitome of fame and so on. But you're not in control of how the limo is driven, how fast it goes or anything. That's not your deal. It's the driver's. Now, the driver could be part of you, like I said, like your ambition, or it could be you're going to have to be careful. You're giving control over to some other force.
Right.
All right?
Right.
And driven here is a good word in both senses, that we are driven sometimes to pursue our goals. Now, Madonna's a perfect example of somebody who is absolutely focused on becoming a success, which she did. I mean, huge, huge success. And you were going to a place, Hollywood, which is the same thing. I mean, this is what people go there for, to make their name, to become, you know, the rich and famous person, whatever it is.
Right.
However, your higher self, or subconscious, is saying, you had better be careful. You're making this huge change. But it could be very dangerous.
Right.
You could get off the pathway. All right.
So Madonna could absolutely represent fame itself, Hollywood, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, the whole bit.
Well, the injection. For a start, she injects you with, you assume, poison. All right. You go instant death, all right. Now, here's the interesting thing. When she injects you, what exactly is that? That what's the meaning behind it? Now, one of the things about injections, and here it's not a good injection, is that it's highly dangerous, and we associate it with drugs for a start, but we also, you know, with things like we have to be injected with vaccines and all sorts of other things to keep us healthy.
Right.
It's also, in dreams, it represents energy, all right? Now, this is a destructive energy that's being injected into you. So it could be, watch out, you're moving to a place where it's so much easier to fall into a destructive pattern of life. That doesn't have to mean drugs.
Yeah.
It can mean just the very fact that you've lost control over how you're doing things. You're not protected anymore by your alma mater, okay? And notice you put that in your dream. You said alma mater. And that's, interestingly enough, the motherly feeling who protects us and keeps us safe.
Oh, wow.
Is even showing up in your dream, okay?
That's interesting.
And Madonna, of course, the name of, you know, the Holy Mother,
right,
at the same time, you know, here is taken in a different way. Here Madonna is not that image of womanhood, but something that is extremely powerful, aggressive, and determined to have its own way.
And maybe even, you know, insidious, you know, harmful.
Right. Well, for you, definitely. I mean, for her, she had her ups and downs, of course, in her life. But this dream is using her as a symbol for you. So what we've got here is this is a risky move, and you need to be careful, and you need to get help. So you rush around, going upstairs, as I said, that's your higher self, raising yourself up to your advisor, and Beverly represents that, trying to get help on an old-fashioned phone, which is placed out of the way, on top of a fridge, of all things, which is not a good, you know, I mean, what's the fridge represent? Things in cold storage? You know, it's like, and there's a huge struggle going on here as you attempt to get, no, I'm going to be in control. But it's taken me some time to figure it out. But that was just telling you, that doesn't mean you are going to die. It just meant you are going to change. And one of the interesting things, which I'll just throw in here, in one of the tarot decks, I think it's Mother Peace, death, the card death, is represented by a snake which sheds its skin. It does not mean dying. It means this old skin is thrown off and a new, bigger, brighter, better snake emerges.
Regeneration, rebirth,
Absolutely.
Reinvention.
Yes.
Well, that's interesting because also, you know, obviously Madonna was the queen of reinvention, but I definitely had a feeling in the dream almost like I had been bitten by a snake. And, you know, of the injections are the venom of the snake, right? When you get bit by a snake,
Absolutely.
You're injected with the same thing. So maybe there's a whole other layer there about that, but that's the whole idea of death. In this case, do you think it was literal, or do you think it was more of like, if you move to Hollywood, you're going to be instantly transformed, or were both things at play here?
You're going to be shedding your skin. It is a kind of death. You are not going to be the same person. You are going to change. Now, how you're going to change, you've got to be careful. You need to be in control of it. Do not let other people, in the guise of making it easier for you, that's the driver of the limo, okay, making it easy for you, do not let them, whoever them is, I mean, that's just circumstances, situations, and so on, take you away from your creative path, because that's why you went to Hollywood. You went there to be the writer that you wanted to be, which you became. I mean, you've written your book, you've written screenplays, you've done all these things.
Yeah.
And you're still working at it. I mean, it's not like this is the end. This is just the middle, beginning, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting, that you have many reinventions in your life, and certainly if you're a creative person, you're always adapting to change and, changing with the times. And so, in a sense, maybe the getting injected with instant death was a good thing, but I think you're right, there was a lot of sort of caution there.
Yes, and a bit of panic because, how am I going to handle it?
Yeah.
But you did handle it. I mean, I told you before, and we talked about dreams of when I emigrated to this country. I had a lot of dreams about that beforehand, and some of them were like, oh my goodness, how is it going to be?
Yeah.
Moving completely from one continent to the other and so on. It was okay. I mean, we handled it when we got here. We handled it, but it took a while, especially for my husband, because he was not a very adaptable person, and I am, and it stood me in good stead in many situations. But, it took him a while, and we had dreams about panicking and so on in the same way that you just had one.
Yes.
Well, you had it 20 years ago, for heaven's sake. Now, I think this is a good dream because it shows how our higher selves, or our subconscious, whatever you want to say this is, giving you the message, says, I'm telling you that this will be a big change, and you need to be in control. Do not be taken off guard by somebody else saying, I'll get you there.
Sure.
Let me show you how to do it.
Sure.
Or injecting you with destructive habits or thoughts. Right? You don't want to be part of the drug scene. You don't want to be this or that or the other, whatever it was that you were worrying about 20 years ago.
Or even people that were just corrupted by fame and fortune. And I would later encounter some of those people, really, who in Hollywood hasn't.
I know you did.
Yeah.
I know.
So
yes, I remember.
Foreboding there. But interesting stuff, and I love the part about the car and being driven. Maybe next time you have another dream with cars in it that you can share with us, something.
Oh, yes. Oh, I have dreams with cars, yes, and different vehicles, and that's interesting. And to anybody who's listening to this, if you dream about a vehicle, think about what is the vehicle, right? Is it a beat-up, battered old thing? I had a really funny little dream once where I was approaching this enormous hill, and I was in a very old beat-up car, like an old VW or something, and I looked at the car, and I didn't have it, by the way, it wasn't my car, and I was coming up, and I thought, I'm never going to get over in this thing, but not up this hill, and suddenly this vehicle took off like a rocket, and it shot up this hill as easy as pie. In other words, it said, you know what, stop looking at the image here, the outer image.
Right.
What's inside the vehicle is going to count, and you're going to get over this hill in no time, which I did.
Interesting stuff. Well, I thank you. It's been enlightening for me, and hopefully listeners can take a piece of this, even if they haven't been shot in the arm by Madonna. Maybe there's a piece of this that applies to something they've dreamed about. So thank you, Yvonne.
My pleasure, Chris. Good talking to you.
Reimagine That with Chris Mann was brought to you by Retroality TV. Copyright 2013 by Chris Mann. You can find us at retroality.tv and at reimaginethat.libsyn.com. Tweet us at retroalitytv or join us on Facebook at facebook.com/retroalitytv. And don't forget to check out our TV channel at youtube.com/retroalitytv. This podcast has been brought to you by the makers of Instant Death, now available in natural, unnatural, and suspicious varieties. Instant Death. Death in a hurry without the worry.